Okay, I'm going to call to order the April 11th, 2023 City of North St. Paul Economic Development Authority regular meeting, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Chris, could you take roll call, please?
Chair Dew,
Here.
Vice Chair Furlong,
Here.
Member Matthews,
Here.
Member Shifsky,
Here.
Member Thorson,
Here.
and absent today are Council Representative Cole and Mayor Mungy. For staff and ex officio members, today present are Executive Director Frandl, Treasurer Community Development Director Howe, Business Association Representative Gary, and EDA Secretary Cherney.
Okay, thank you. For the record, I would state that a quorum is present, and I do need to ask, do we, since both council member representatives are absent, I don't believe there's anything that changes a quorum. No, we still have a quorum. Okay, good. Perfect. The agenda was presented to you. I'm going to propose one change to the agenda prior to open it for any discussion or a motion to approve. And item 11, adjournment, we are going to move to item 12 and swap that, and the closed session will be item 11. So adjournment would be the last item to occur.
And also maybe remove the presentation of the recognition of Mr. Jensen.
Thank you. The presentation under item 4, recognition of Don Jensen, we are going to table that until he is able to attend. Barring those changes, any further discussion? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as modified.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Furlong, seconded by Shifsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none. We have an approved agenda, so we will get going. With item 4 that got scrubbed, so we'll move right to item 5, the approval of the minutes from March 14th, 2023. And I'll entertain any comments, corrections. Otherwise, look for a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries and the minutes are approved. Meeting open to the public. Do we have anybody online? Everybody in the room looks official. Perfect. Okay, move to item 7, action items. Do we have any? Okay, no action items specifically under that article. So, item 8, items for discussion. The item A is the fall roundup parade, and I'll ask staff to address that.
Carrie Erpenbach has a presentation related to that.
Oh, Carrie. Could you please come forward and tell us your address? No, I'm just kidding.
Downstairs at my desk. Good afternoon, members of the EDA. Thanks for a few minutes here. A couple weeks ago, I got a call from Mayor Mungy, and he asked me, Carrie, what can we do to save the parade? As you know, just for some background information, the parade has been managed throughout the years, primarily by the businesses in town. I think the History Cruisers had a stint at it for a few years before it came back to the Business Association. Then during the pandemic, the city took a larger role, basically because we had the tools so we could do the outreach and get the registration started. Since then, North St. Paul, like other cities, have been faced with challenges on state statute and what's the appropriate role for cities and festivals and celebrations. And I knew that, and I've been in conversation with some of our surrounding cities, namely with Jason Zimmerman over at Oakdale, and they're facing similar challenges, just like we are with this idea. So, being an investigative journalist by trade, I started digging through some documents. And what you have in your packet is just some summary back on the parade, but I did find some documents and statements from the League of Minnesota Cities that could possibly give some leeway for the parade to come and be managed as an economic development authority initiative. I have been in contact with the city attorney. I drafted a draft proposal. He laughed at it. I said, this is how marketing people write proposals. You can put your legal talk into that. He has some questions, and of course, as his role as city council, he needs to keep us safe. And make sure that there's no violations of any state statute. But I found several instances in the League of Minnesota city documents that speak to the leeway that an EDA has to promote the city. So the proposal that comes to me is treating the parade as an economic development activity. Primarily, it does spur development. It brings our community together to our downtown. It certainly supports our downtown businesses. I think we'd be far pressed for any business along 7th who, isn't delighted when that event comes into town. And then to even, further cement it as, possibly an EDA initiative would be the outreach for businesses. As it was in the past, if you were a member of the North St. Paul Business Association, you got a free unit in the parade. And I'm proposing that if there's interest and support from the EDA, that possibly we would have it be that any business in North St. Paul would be granted, one free entry in the parade to really showcase what our community has to offer. I'll be perfectly blunt with you. The city attorney wasn't convinced. I gave him some good arguments. I think I got him to waver a little bit. He did ask me to take it to you first. The concern comes with, the definition of the parade. He views it as a celebration. I truly do believe it as promotion for the city, very similar to the expenditures that the EDA authorized for the promotional video that a vendor's working on right now. So with that, I guess if there's any questions, like I said, I'm not an attorney, but, going through the documents that I found, that might be a pathway for us to keep this event going.
What's the traditional date? Oh, I didn't push all the way, sorry. What's the traditional date of the?
Traditionally, it is the Thursday night before the final car show. September 14th it would be this year, I believe.
Okay. And to get a decision from the EDA by when would be ideal, if it's not today?
I think, we're not looking for a formal yay because it still has to go through the city attorney.
Right.
But Soren did ask that I present to you guys and to see if there's interested, or I guess if you agreed or disagreed with the premise that bringing the parade to town was certainly an economic development opportunity.
Why don't I just open it up for comments or that anybody might have regarding the EDA's participation in this and how it may fit, and maybe let's just operate under the assumption that we can do it legally. We'll have to vet that out, but let's just operate under that assumption for our purposes of our comments.
Well, I have a few comments. Everyone that grew up in the town recognizes that Fall Roundup was a neat event, was one that a lot of people supported, the businesses supported, the businesses participated throughout the entire Main Street. And being that I've been on the Business Association for way too many years that I remember, the participation waned because there's a lot of work involved, as anyone who's been involved in it knows. And we have had people step up when the decision was made by the Business Association to disassociate ourselves with that. There were some members that stepped up and said, no, I'll do it. And we all backed that but we also knew that it was probably going to be a 2 or 3 year burnout on that person, and that's what it's been. We have this wonderful car show that's run by volunteers of that organization, runs the whole summer, and Fall Roundup seemed to piggyback on that last weekend. So I don't think the city is going to be hurting for any lack of recognition, because that car show is the one that's really bringing it to us. So I'd hate to see us spend money on a parade that's meant for retaining businesses in our town and encouraging additional businesses coming in town. And they're going to come because of the car show that we've got and the things that have gone on in our city. So I think it's wonderful that someone wants to step up and do this, but we've been through this many times before with other, with the business association. I'm sure Brett, as the new president, can speak to how much work is involved. Joe, I know, was involved with it. So you need volunteers, you need people that are willing to work at it, and that's hard to get these days. So that's what I've got to say.
Can I, before we take additional comments, can I just maybe get a point of clarity? I hate to challenge the CPA here, but, so the financial summaries that I'm looking at actually show a net gain. Am I reading that wrong?
You are correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the net gain would come from reaching out to businesses that have been in North St. Paul for many years, and then the net gain would also come from businesses that have just come into North St. Paul over the last 3 to 4 years. A lot of those businesses that have come to North St. Paul has a lot of backing to do with the amount of work that EDA has put into bringing them here. And they've been extremely financially generous with the Fall Roundup Parade for the last few years.
I love a parade, being part of Winter Carnival. I would say in the last 2 years, the parade has probably been one of the biggest parades in the metropolitan area. It has, I think it had over 80 units last year.
104.
104. So
I lined them all up.
we did White Bear Lake this last year, and they had 60 St. Paul Winter Carnival during Torchlight Parade, or the Grand Day Parade usually brings about 60 floats. So I commend who, I believe it's you, Carrie, that has actually brought a sizable parade to our city. And I think that does showcase our city as businesses. I think it's a good idea to, you know, businesses who are in the parade, who, and I think you do have a lot of the businesses that are in the parade. It's kind of their time to showcase to the residents too about who they are, and just bring a good feel for, number one, the downtown. It's going to bring people to the downtown. So to me, I think it does meet kind of that criteria for economic development, or advertisement for the city, advertisement for the businesses. And if it's a net gain, you know, to me, it's a benefit. So that's kind of where I sit.
Carrie, you had mentioned, city attorney had talked about a disagreement on, he felt that this was more of a celebration
Correct.
more than can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, and I think that's some of the challenge that, you know, even staff have been dealing with is the way that some of these words are used and defined. I just was a couple weeks ago at the Minnesota Festival and Event Association. In my private life, I am a event planner, and I ran into all these people from other cities that are down there doing these types of things. And, you know, and I asked our city attorney, I said, you know, I ran into a couple of your cities down there. You know, how are they able to do some of these things? So that's what he's looking in, is to see what we can do. You know, his first take on it, he goes, this is a celebration. It doesn't meet, the criteria. And then when I raised some of the other issues about economic development, and maybe this is a long shot, maybe it won't, but I promise this community that if this dies, we're gonna go down swinging.
Yeah, from the legal standpoint, again, let's operate under the assumption we can get over this hurdle. I appreciate city attorney's conservative viewpoint, trying to keep us out of trouble.
That's what I told him was his job.
I mean, just sitting here, it doesn't, for me, it's not a big leap to be able to, present this as an economic development positive for the city. Again, one of our main charters is business retention and attraction. And to me, it's just not a mental stretch to present an event that's doing exactly that. But we'll have to jump that hurdle. I don't know that there's a lot of point in debating
Yeah,
whether
I think
whether
at
we
this
can
point,
or can't.
Yeah, I think at this point, the city attorney, before he spent too much more time on it, wanted to see if there was any agreement or support from the EDA. He did kind of go, this isn't until September, you don't need it now. It's like, oh no, we started filling this thing in April.
Time flies.
And over the weekend, I actually got an email from the Minneapolis Aquatennial saying, let us know your date. It's like, we don't have one.
Could I ask Brett Gary? Brett, do you have any comments from a business association standpoint on this? Maybe whether it's the value of the event or some of the challenges in finding volunteers, et cetera. And for the record, Councilmember Cole is joining the meeting at 3:18 and 52 seconds. That'd be great.
Yeah, well, the last, as Member Furlong said, the last 2 years, the parade has been extremely successful. We've had record numbers 2 years ago and then beat that record last year as far as the number of units. I've walked in the parade, seen the number of people that it brings to town. It's huge. And I think from a business standpoint, it is a real value to the community.
I mean, do you feel that it energizes the business community at some
I
level?
think so. Yeah, absolutely. Business. We had our business association meeting today, and I had numerous members come up to me at our meeting today asking, well, do we have a date for the parade? I've heard some rumblings that it's going to die. We'd hate to have that happen, so on and so forth. So the business community, I think they do really look forward to it as a worthwhile activity.
Okay.
Can I say something?
Please.
So we all know that from a business standpoint, a lot of businesses have struggled through COVID. A lot of cities have struggled through COVID. Setting ourselves apart as a city of North St. Paul when parades are dying around the metro area, they're not continuing during COVID, and to put a product together in the magnitude that was done really sets us apart. It says we're a strong community. You would want to move into this town as a family. You would want to conduct yourself as a business owner in this town, because when push comes to shove, when people are having a hard time in this world, the city of North St. Paul as a community stepped up and did something that a lot of other cities couldn't get done. And that's a really, really strong message. And that's something all of us, from city employees to the business association to the EDA, everybody should be proud of. And that should continue.
Member Shiskey, anything to add?
No, I kind of agree with what was just said. I hate to see it die. It's been here forever. We don't want to lose that.
Any comments from staff on the topic? Are you allowed to have an opinion? Councilmember Cole, I know you're just getting the basic question on the table is can, assuming that legally it's okay, can the EDA kind of take up driving the fall roundup?
Yeah, I mean, I can't reiterate what Joe said either. I mean, North St. Paul lost the parade for a while, and it was quiet. To not have it again when the community's finally just getting back together and businesses are up and going and we're as vibrant as we are from a growth standpoint would definitely be detrimental. It's roll with whatever we need to do to get it done.
So, Member Thorson, can I come back to you? I mean, what I heard you say, I mean, if there was an objection in there, the one thing I heard was the volunteer effort and getting the folks to participate. I don't know if I missed something or if anything that others have said have changed your mind at any level.
Well, all I can say is the reason it is, I know there are a lot of other people involved, but right now you've got someone, Carrie, who has taken the ball and run with it. And as long as that continues through the city, if allowed, I think it's gonna work. But if we go back to who's gonna run it, the business association, I don't know. You know, if we can get somebody to take that on, without her, it probably wouldn't have been as successful as it was. And that's a city involvement.
Okay. I guess I'm of the opinion, I think that anything along those lines that we can do to send a message to our own communities, surrounding communities, and the region at large that North St. Paul is a good place to be for whatever reason, and I think this is a good reason. I would, whether you couch it as a celebration or you couch it as an appreciation for our businesses and an opportunity to invite potential new businesses into town, that may all be semantics, but I think that we shouldn't give up on stuff like that, is my opinion. As far as I'm concerned, I'd like to bring back Crazy Days. I thought that was kind of fun too, but we'll save that for another conversation. So I guess without objection, what maybe the best place to leave this, or let me add one other component to the point. Yes, it's hard to get people to volunteer for things, and to get Carrie or any individual or a couple individuals to just carry the flag, I don't think is good either. I think one of the things that we can do here as the EDA is help form consensus in groups. I mean, there's a lot of people in the city. It's not just the 7 of us that sit here. It's not just the council. It's not just the folks in the business association. We have other people that I think would probably want to be involved in this, whether it's all the new residents that we have in town that might want to get involved. We have an arts council, get them involved in some stuff. I mean, a lot of people may not even realize we have an arts council. It's fairly new. I think there's opportunities for us to lead in this capacity and form, a collective group that can make this happen. And so, I guess without objection, I think we'd have some staff direction to vet out our kind of the legal side of it, if you will. But I would suggest that I don't really have a problem for us driving that, and I don't know that means anybody at this table is involved in the day-to-day, but for us to be the hinge pin and to make it happen. Yes, sir. Member Furlong.
So can this still be a partnership with the business association? Are there things that the business association might be able to take on that might be able to help the cause of the EDA?
And I think that's the secret sauce. I mean, if the EDA is to keep our businesses strong and keep our businesses engaged. And is the parade a lot of work? Yeah, but I really hate to give away the secret sauce, but we have tools available to us that make this very easy. I mean, it's a few emails and they just come in. And now that we've got a 2-year track record of being the parade to be in, You know, where the work comes in is the day of. You know, putting in those stakes and lining people up. That's where the volunteers are really needed. But frankly, but prior to that, it's a few emails, a couple of phone calls, and we fill it.
We've been very good, you know, the last 2 years. Yes, Carrie has definitely spearheaded the efforts of really getting, you know, units to show up. But we have also had a committee that's helped you. You know, Joe was on that committee, and other residents of North St. Paul were on the committee, not just business people. The committee was made up of a couple other residents from North St. Paul. So there is interest. People are interested in getting involved. And like Carrie said, the day of the parade, a little crazy, but even the last 2 years, we've had a lot of people show up to help us, you know, get units lined up, keep the parade flowing. And we've even Carrie's gotten a little bit more strategic in where she places certain units, because some of them like to take their time going down the parade route more so than others. So definitely last year, you know, I think the parade flowed really well. It was quick. For the number of units we had, moved really well. And we had a lot of volunteers there to help get people lined up.
Well, I think that when you have events like this, established events especially, I think it would be a shame for us to step aside as the EDA and just say, well, whatever happens, happens. I think it's a good opportunity for us to, help the community in a number of ways and fulfill a portion of our mission, and not do anything to me would be, I'm going to give an extreme example, but it would be analogous to saying, well, we don't want to pay to paint the snowman, so let's tear it out. I mean, that to me is ridiculous. So I guess without objection, what I think would be the smart next move, I do think that, not having talked to Soren about it, the city attorney about this, I didn't really fully understand the issue as presented in the packet. I think I understand it better now. And I don't want to speak for the rest of us up here, but I wasn't entirely sure what the issue was. So I think it would make sense to ask staff, and I'm sure, Carrie, at some level you'd be involved since you've already started the conversation, to understand and essentially get whether there are guard posts or guidelines or what have you from the city attorney on how we can move forward as the, I'll say for lack of a better term, the sponsor of this event. And then at our, what are we in, May meeting, we can talk about, some leadership volunteers to gather the teams and the forces. Again, this is not something we're gonna shoulder as the EDA, but it sounds like we have the opportunity to get ample volunteers throughout the city, be it city officials of any sort, or business association members, or just members of the community. So any objection to directing staff to vet that out with the city attorney? Okay, so is that clear as mud, Brandy? Perfect. Okay.
As clear as talking to legal, yeah.
Anything else to add, Carrie?
No, I just want to make sure, thank you. Like I said, we'll do our best to work with the city attorney and figure out some kind of structure. He does assure me that he doesn't want to be the no guy, and I assured him that I need him to be the keep me out of trouble guy. So hopefully we can all put our heads together and find a way to keep this going.
Perfect, yeah, and happy to participate in that. I think that, if there's a key element that, would couch this as a key function of the EDA, I'm sure we can figure that out. And again, assuming that we'll be able to execute this and it's a volunteer effort and not a cash effort, certainly makes me comfortable as well, so.
Awesome, thank you very much.
Great. Okay, now we get into the meaty stuff. Item B, EDA bylaws. At our last meeting, we had asked that those be distributed. Do you want me to hand it to the staff to?
No, I think I mean, really, this is here as a result of your request last month to have the bylaws put in the packet along with Chapter 32, that is the ordinance that created the EDA. Just to have a review of it to see if anything needs to be modified. We did receive an email from Elaine Bartnick, who was on the Planning Commission at one point, and she had some concerns that the email went to went to the mayor and to the city council liaison, so I don't think that the entire group has had a chance to see it. She had a couple of concerns regarding how it relates to the state statute. So in addition to whatever comments you may have for changes based on your opinions, staff can take those and come up with an amendment that includes any revisions that address inconsistencies with the state law.
Any thoughts or comments from the commissioners on the bylaws? Okay, I did not see Elaine Barton's comments, so I'm not sure what they are. I think that and I actually have no comments other than to say that I think as the EDA continues to mature, you know, it may be something we certainly want to look at annually at a minimum. But I'll just leave it to staff, and if there's a recommended amendment to the bylaws, I'm not sure the exact process for that. Ultimately, I know the city council would have to approve it, but I assume that the EDA would have to approve modification of the bylaws as well, so.
Yeah, I can take a look at them, review it against the Chapter 32 and also against whatever there is in state statute, and present a red line version to you next month if you like, and then we can take it on to council after that.
I would think that's sufficient, again, unless there was some urgency to comments made by others. Okay, perfect. Any other comments? Good. Okay, item 8C, EDA advertisements.
This was another item that the EDA requested that staff put together as a means to let the general public know that the EDA is here and ready for them. They're available for assistance, and so Chris put together a couple of options for you to look at. Do you have anything to add, Chris?
Yeah, if there's just a preferred number, or if you just want to completely rework any of them, that's okay too. If you have any preferred contacts that we put in the newsletter, that would be helpful as well. We can also get images from Carrie that we can attach next to the article. So just seeking direction on what's preferred.
Did any of the commissioners, I have not had a chance to review this, so I'm hesitant to comment on it at this time. Did anybody else? Okay. Would it be okay if we, if the EDA commits to reviewing this and providing feedback?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't see this as something that would require a vote either. Can we just provide any comments via email and get a consensus on it?
Sure. However, the EDA wants to provide staff direction as to how and when to set an advertisement out. It's our understanding that it would go in the newsletter. If there's any other forums that it needs to be posted on, we can do that too. We just need direction on what to do.
Okay. Yeah, and I think as it's all coming back to me, but, you know, we talked about making sure that the business community that knows that we're here for them, should there be a need. That was, you know, something we discussed about, you know, how do we pick and choose? And, you know, we kind of said we don't pick and choose. If somebody shows up at our doorstep, you know, we address it, and we have had some affirmative reach out in the past as well, and that's how some of our activities come to be. So what we talked about is doing a more affirmative reach out. Why don't we do this? Let's put a 1-week suspense time on it. If you have comments, please get those comments. Or I think the other thing, if there is a preferred kind of language, if we get that information, don't email the group because that would constitute meeting issues. So please just email it to Chris and Brandy, and then if you have no comments, so be it, but try to get comments back within a week, and then, Chris, we can connect in a week and say, yeah, we like number 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Does that work?
Sounds good.
Okay, perfect. Okay, item 8D, the facade improvement program.
So we added this item to the agenda because we had an inquiry from Roddy's Bar about whether the EDA still had this program in existence, and it, from our research of the files, it looks like it does not exist. I think it maybe ended around 2019, maybe. So what we have in the report is just kind of our understanding of what the facade improvement program was at that time, and our question to you is this something that you recall doing, and do we want to have a discussion about possibly bringing it back?
We did do it, and there was essentially, I don't know if it was just an initial fee or an annual fee that we paid to MCCD to facilitate and execute the program. You know, so we did do it. I don't remember when it fell off. I'd have to say it's been at least 3 or 4 years since it fell off. Thoughts? Comments?
I don't know what it is. Give me a little background here.
Yeah, so, you know, this group, and I don't, is it part of the Metropolitan Council, or, I'm not sure what it was, but it was this Metropolitan Coalition of Community Developers. I don't know if it was a private organization or quasi-public, I'm not sure, but they had come in, again, a number of years ago, did a presentation about assisting the city with the ability to take on individual business owners that wanted to do facade improvements, you know, fix their canopies, paint the outside of the building, whatever that may be. And essentially, they managed that program for us and, you know, did the initial vetting and then would bring back, actually, I don't even think they would bring it back to us. The awards were just made out of the MCCD fund, as I recall. But we did have to pay them a fee to be active and administer that. I don't know how successful it was. I know that there was a couple people that took advantage of it.
There was a couple people that
Yeah.
took advantage of it.
Maybe 2 or something in over a 3 or 4 year period, and we were paying roughly a $5,000 annual fee for it, and I think that's why it fell off. I'm just going from memory, but
And I think we lost our staff person at that time too, so it wasn't being advertised out there for quite a while.
we were without a brandy for a few years, so
Yeah.
it made it
The
difficult.
COVID pandemic also kind of interrupted things too,
Good.
around that same time period.
Did you say MCCD is still operational, or do we not know that?
Yeah, I think they are. I'm not entirely sure if this program is operational. Chris was tasked with reaching out to them, and I believe that the person that we needed to talk to was not available last week.
Okay.
So it's on our to-do to kind of dig into this and figure out what is the program, and can we get some more information on it, if it can be resurrected. So we can provide that to you next.
Is it under Grow, Minnesota, or there's another name for it?
Open for business? Does
Open for business? Yep, open for business. I think that was it. It sounds familiar.
Yeah, I don't, I would suggest if we've reached out to them, I would say maybe continue on that, have staff continue on that path, maybe not be solely focused on facade improvement, but what other things are they doing that might be beneficial, you know, to the business community or the community at large that the EDA may or may not want to be involved with, and just bring it back and we can take a look at it and see what next steps are. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Any other? Perfect, we'll do that. Okay. Okay, item 9, treasurer's report.
Okay, your report is in the packet, and the expenses for this month included staff time, that $51 carried over from last month. That was for legal services, and our ending fund balance is $429,198.53. The question about when does the levy money get installed, that is twice a year, July, and then again in December, I believe. So we'll see that in the summertime.
Is that with interest or? Never mind. Okay, perfect. Any question on the treasury report? Okay. Staff updates.
Okay, I tried to put them all into one summary document for you. Little Box Architecture was engaged to do a, let's see, what do we call it, lease area drawing for Tracy Luther's property here on the corner. And that was completed, and it was provided to both Mr. Luther and to Cal of Cal's Pizza to determine, you know, if there's a appropriate space for the place. Tracy was just in here this afternoon and said he was on his way over to talk to Cal to start the discussion about, you know, is there a future here? So we have yet to hear back from them about that. But the drawing worked well, so we should be receiving probably an invoice from Little Box in the next month or so.
Do we get a copy of that?
I can email everybody a copy this afternoon.
I think we could see what it looks like.
Yeah, I did see it. To me, it looks like it fits great. I maybe disagreed. I don't have to operate it, but I kind of disagreed with the, as they called it, utilizing the rectilinear space as opposed to the diagonal space. I thought the diagonal space would be better for the city. We're talking about the old TCF Bank building here. We're going to plug her in. Perfect.
What do I need to do here?
Oh, here we go. Oh, Costa Rica.
Well, that's my other screen, so let me see.
Yeah, so there, the comments that were in the email, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and this was an email from the designer that worked on it. It sounded like Cal, the pizza factory operator, preferred the one on the left, which is kind of what I would call the inboard space. I didn't really hear the reasons or understand that.
Where's Margaret? Is that on the left there?
Margaret would be on the far right of the page as we're looking at it.
With that?
Yeah, it runs, Margaret runs parallel with that diagonal portion
Got it.
of the building. And I was just of the opinion that I think it gives it a little more kind of street frontage and,
Which side are you referring to, the Margaret Street side?
as I'm looking at it, the right side, so where it's up against Margaret on the diagonal.
Yep.
I
I've got his
mean-
email forward here if you want me to
Sure.
talk about it, okay. The basement area is where the utilities are, and I believe that he says either side could work for the pizza concept, but would select the left in hopes of reusing some of the drain lines and HC pipes for the new kitchen. While there is plumbing on the right side, it is along the rear wall and doesn't extend into the space. So more saw cutting would be needed on this side of the building. Does that make sense?
Yep. But again, our role in this was to try to attempt to marry the parties, spend a little bit of money to do some design work, marry the parties, and ideally, Mr. Luther and Cal will be able to put their heads together, work out a lease, get in there, and we get Pizza Factory out of Pine Tree and get them downtown and keep them as a viable entity. So unless they come back, I don't know that we need to say go on the right side or the left side. Go with whatever works and whatever gets the deal done and keeps that business in town. And right now, it's in the hands of both Tracy Luther, the owner of this building, and Cal, and they'll either make it happen or show back up at our doorstep. I assume we'll check in with them to see if we can help, but
Yep, that's how it was left last time I talked to Tracy and Cal.
any thoughts or comments? None? Okay, good. Well, yeah, let's hope that works out. I think that would be
Yep, I can report
a win.
next month on.
And what was our expense on that? It wasn't very much, was it?
I haven't received an invoice yet, and I don't recall, it was maybe 130 or so, maybe a little bit more per hour.
Yeah, I mean, it was,
Up to like 2,500 bucks.
and I don't think
I don't
we're,
know if he got anywhere near that, but
okay. All right.
we had some other updates. River of God and Reflex Medical. So staff has been working, well, we were working at the time of this writing to schedule a meeting with Reflex Medical. 3 of us met with them today to talk about their expansion plans. And do you want to?
Sure. Yeah, so Brandy, Terry, and I met today with Kevin Fuller, the owner of Reflex Medical. The backing up just a bit, we had met, just as a reminder, we had met with the folks at River of God Church, really discussed the redevelopment master plan update with them. Just wanted to have a conversation and kind of explain that, it was quite possible that, their property might, somebody might have their eyes on the property for, an alternative or different use. We weren't sure at the time where Reflex was. They had announced a stated desire to expand or need to expand. We weren't sure whether that was a 5-year program, a 2-year program. I want to get it done yesterday. We just weren't sure. So we set up the meeting, and I think it was fairly clear to me that he'd be under construction right now if he could. And he did take us on a tour of the facility. Pretty clear need, at least from what I could see, for additional space. He talked to us about some of his company's trajectory and also about some of the workforce in there. And it was fairly clear to me that there is a clear need. He needs to grow. So what we had talked with the church about was trying to understand if they had to relocate, what did that look like for them? How much space do they need? What do they have, et cetera. They didn't really know. They've been in a building that they've kind of cobbled through. What is that, an old skating rink or bowling alley or something? So, what they need in terms of if we had it all laid out and it was efficient and what have you, they weren't entirely sure. So, basically, we came back with the premise of let's meet with Reflex, find out what their thoughts were, which I just mentioned, what they are. And so, similar to what we've done with Cal and the Pizza Factory, we've proposed the idea of trying to be the stimulus to get things started by getting a designer to do some space planning and gain an understanding of what the church's needs are for potential relocation. There was some discussion about they could even maybe stay on the site within the expanded building and a few other things. And so, Terry, you were at the meeting too. I'll let you add to if I've missed anything here.
No, I think that opened up the door to discussion in regards to, what the church is looking for. We need to figure out what their needs are, like you said. And I think once we determine that, then I think we have to look for options for them to either relocate, or it could be on campus too. We just don't know. But I think it was a very good discussion today, and hopefully both parties, we can work together and find a solution.
Yeah, and I think the other part of this, of this process, also helps understand what, where the church really is. We had discussions under a kind of a, la land. There were no specifics or anything at that time. So this will help root out whether, can they move, are they willing to move, what's the criteria, et cetera, et cetera. So, we could do some effort here and it may not go anywhere further, or it may move a lot faster than one would anticipate. But just to speak to where I think the EDA's role is on this, this is really, I would, if I had to position it, I would say this is a business retention effort. If you haven't been to Reflex Medical, what a phenomenal facility to have here in town. High tech, a lot of clean rooms, a lot of high paying jobs. Just a great thing going on there, and their trajectory seems to be nothing but upward. And they do need more space. And I think it's incumbent upon us to, they're a bit landlocked, but it's incumbent upon us to at least, at some reasonable level, try to facilitate conversations, if nothing else. But, and so I'll open it for comments and any other discussion. But what I'm going to propose is that we give staff direction to get a proposal from a design group, which I think we've identified a potential candidate. It's DSGW that's used to operate in this building, but get a formalized proposal that the EDA would fund, and we'll earmark stuff like this to, just as we did with Lilly and other projects, in attempt to recoup that down the line in some way, shape, or form. But for the initial component, and I think we're talking, at least from what we understand, Brandy, we're talking less than $2,000 or something.
I would imagine so, yeah.
Yeah, but we'll get a formalized proposal. But so I'm going to propose that we direct staff to go get that proposal, and something we can look at and get approved in our May meeting. So that's kind of where we sit. I'll open it to comments or questions. Anyone? Okay. So with that, if staff could undertake obtaining a proposal to do, I would call it programming. I don't know what they'll call it, but programming to meet with the church, understand what their needs are. Should they have to be relocated, and from that point on, we could, we'll be able to take the next steps. So, and there was a plethora of potential outcomes we talked about that could come out of this.
Want to do a motion to set a dollar amount not to exceed, or would we need to do that, or?
I don't think we need to do that now. At this point, I'm kind of in the process of seeking a proposal from DSGW, so we could just see what it comes back as. And if it needs to be modified, we can negotiate with them and make sure that we understand the scope of work too.
I just don't want to stop the process.
Right. I think we want to keep this in front of us, make sure it's on the agenda next month. But
Yep. I've got a proposal on the way.
Perfect. Okay. Item 3, Old National Bank. Looks like no meeting's been set. So is there?
No, I don't think we have a meeting set.
I got in touch with the facility property manager, but she has not given any availability yet.
Okay, we'll just leave that on there for, and again, the intent of that is same thing, update on redevelopment master plan, and maybe try to gain an understanding of where they sit and what their future looks like.
I don't have an update on Gary Mulcahy. Do you?
I do. I met with him right before we met with Reflex. So we had a hard time connecting, and I would hope to have been further along from our last meeting, but I was able to give them the basic feedback of our discussions about their desires on the site across the street. And the way we left it with them is they are going to put together effectively a presentation on what their plan is, with the intent of presenting that to the EDA. I told them it'd be 10 to 15 minutes at the May meeting. And they're going to address key points about, obviously, they won't have the exact architecture and aesthetics and stuff worked out, but I said, give us some ideas of what that might be. I asked them to try to bring to us, even though, things unfold in different ways, bring to us the anticipated, what they foresee as, what types of tenants would be in there, what the operations look like, what are the hours of peak activity, ask them to address why they believe it's a win for the city. They're going to talk to, I know, Medina and Chanhassen about their thought processes as they approve similar facilities and try to get us some feedback from those folks in those communities as to, was it a good thing, a bad thing, was it neutral, what have you. And so they are putting that together. I gave them a deadline of 1 week prior to I think it's May 9th, if I'm not mistaken, is our next meeting. And so I gave them a deadline of May 2nd to have anything for inclusion into the packet to get to staff. And they'll be in here to present their thoughts and comments.
I had a thought about something, not on this topic, but a previous topic. And, back to the River of God issue, that maybe we can have some direction to the staff to discuss. You're talking about an organization that, it's a tax exempt organization. And to bring that to a tax-paying organization would be wonderful for downtown. We have the school district that is a tax-exempt organization. And I'm wondering if the school district could be brought into some of this discussion about some land swapping. Not all the school facilities in the 622 are, I've heard some talk that Webster School might be eliminated. Well, that's a tax-exempt organization that's not bringing in one dime into the tax base. So is the church. Maybe you can build something in with that in your discussions about, let's face it, the church, they could receive the market value of the property and then they'd have to go invest somewhere else. We have limited space here in North St. Paul. Maybe we can talk to the school district about their plans with some of these properties that are basically public use.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I don't think in terms of, let's just operate under the premise that we're trying to relocate them somewhere else within the city. I don't think anything should or would be off the table. One of the challenges we did have, Chris, when we spoke to them, the church honestly had no idea what their needs were. They weren't even sure how many square feet they had in their existing facility. So we're trying to.
And that to me means they're happy with what they have. And so.
They are, but they've also indicated too in our discussions that, these are my words, not necessarily theirs, but, that their current facility is not the most efficient, that it's underused, and, that there are kind of ongoing expenses with the older building and stuff like that. They didn't jump at the chance to say, oh yeah, we'll just pick up and move, tell us where. They agreed, and I think it makes sense to, okay, let's figure out under a scenario where you do have to relocate, or the ideal scenario is that you do relocate. What are we relocating to? 4,000 feet, 6,000, 10,000? They literally had no idea, and we don't have any idea either. So that's kind of where this first step came about, is to say, okay, if you got to move, what does that look like? And there's plenty of opportunities. There's already been at least 3, if you want to add potential school district properties, 4 now, ideas that I've heard thrown out that all seem quite viable for the church.
I wasn't aware if there were any, so good.
Yeah, so I mean, again, yeah, we certainly don't want to be in a position where we're asking a entity to relocate or, go away because they're a nonprofit. I mean, that's not the intent. The intent is, again, the business retention of an extremely viable business that we have downtown that brings good jobs and pays high taxes and all this other stuff. And it just happens to be their property, and so that's where the conversation is. It could have been a private business as well. And I think the same discussion would occur, so. Okay, so I don't have anything more on the Mulcahy proposed project across the street other than what I offered, and that they will be, I've given some pointers in terms of some things that I believe the EDA would want to hear and be prepared to entertain questions. So we'd like to have them on the agenda for presentation, and they have direction to get a packet to you, Chris, no later than May 2nd. So any other questions on that one? Okay, Lily Billy.
We've been working with Jim, his last name is Lavelle, thank you, escapes me, to try to figure out where he is schedule-wise with this. The last time we talked to him was last week. It looks like he's having some, issues with financing in terms of interest rates have gone up, bid prices are coming in higher than expected, and so there's a bigger gap than he anticipated, and so he's still working at his financing. Meanwhile, we're trying to make sure that the grants that he received are able to be used, so we're keeping a close watch on when those deadlines are required to have work executed in order to receive reimbursement. So we're still optimistic, and we hope by the end of this month that we'll have a firm understanding of where he sits financially. And then if that, everything goes as we hope, then we should look at building demolition beginning in May. So that's all I have to report right now. It's kind of a wait and see.
Did see him at the hockey game the other night. I did talk to him. I waved to him.
Was there any indication that the financing was terribly problematic, or just trying to dot i's and cross t's? Just clean it up? Okay. Good to hear. Well, they already own the property, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, any other thoughts, comments on that? Okay, if not, are there any other items from EDA members? Anybody would like to raise?
I just want to mention the new skateboard store opened up, and I heard the grand opening. They had a lot of people there. I wasn't in town, but I heard it was a very good grand opening. They had a lot of people there, and evidently they're pretty busy.
Yeah, Carrie is going to work on scheduling a ribbon cutting with them when the weather now is better. So sometime in the near future here, you'll be getting an invitation to that.
Good.
I took the opportunity to attend the grand opening, and it's pretty impressive. They did a nice job turning the building around from a usability space. There were a lot of people in the building. The cash register was running, very positive. They're going to probably go through some growing pains. One of the things that when I spoke with one of the owners on was any way we can figure out parking, or for bicycle parking out in front. I know a lot of that stuff when the new sidewalk, et cetera, was put in place, it was removed. So, and I'm sure we'll talk about that at council as well from the downtown reinvention process. So, but that was one of the things, because they do allow them to bring their bikes inside, and they just didn't have the space that day to do it. But it was a lot of energy. It was really cool. And yes, they got some of my money.
Anything else from EDA members before we go into closed session? Anything else from staff? Brett?
Nope, had our general meeting today, went great.
Perfect. Okay, at this time, the meeting will be closed as permitted by Section 13D.05 Subdivision 3C to develop or consider offers related to the possible purchase of land at 2137 Division Street North.